Hello and welcome to this Webflow live stream. My name is Aaron Kornblatt, and I am so excited to be back here for this Webflow live stream. Today, we're talking all about Webflow animations and specifically how to animate text and how to make a navbar absolutely beautiful. And I've got Jomor waiting to join us. I'm super, super excited. But first, thank you all for joining. Who do we have here? We have Joel from Montreal. So, we got people on the stream from Montreal, got people in the chat from Montreal. We got Prabhas. Welcome. So excited to have you here. Appreciate all of you joining us on this Wednesday at 1 p.m. Who else? We got Samson. Bonjour from France. Welcome. So excited to have you. We've got people on Instagram. So if you're joining on Instagram, say hi in the chat. I've got an eye on that as well. A few things before we kick this off. If you're joining us on YouTube, make sure to join us in the chat. Drop a link to your favorite animation. And if we have time at the end, I might have Jomor kind of give you some thoughts around which on your animation, ways to make it better. Welcome Frank, Slavomir, so many folks joining. Super, super excited. So yeah, if you're joining on Instagram and you don't want to tilt your screen, come join us on YouTube, on the Webflow YouTube. So yeah, that's it. We got so many folks. So thank you all for joining. Stillbiter, thank you. So many folks joining us. Really appreciate all of you joining. I don't want to kind of delay this anymore. Let's kick off today's topic. We're going to be talking about animating text with, Jomor. And so before we jump in, also we're going to make the logo bigger. Huge shout out to Keith for sending me this hat. Really appreciate. So thank you, Keith. So one thing, Jomor, we all kind of know Joe from the community. When I asked him how he'd like to get introduced to today's stream, he sent me this, which is basically every single prize that he's ever won. So I'm just going to name a few to introduce him. So Jomor is 3 times Independent of the Year. That's more recent. But if we go back here, we have, most eligible bachelor in the Candiac region of Quebec. I feel like his mom's been collecting these for 10 plus years. We have most likely to be a designer in high school. So it's a man with a lot of accolades and a man who I am super, super excited to welcome to the stream. So Joe, welcome. It is an honor to have a man with such qualified, nominations here with us. Really excited to have you on.
I don't recall. Maybe my agent made that request. It wasn't me.
Well, someone sent me 500 pages worth of prizes that you've won over time. But we in the Webflow community know you as Jomor, the man who builds amazing animations. And we're so, so excited. So beyond prizes, how about a quick introduction? And then we'll jump into today's topic.
Yeah, my background is graphic design, and I've been on the Webflow bandwagon for a while now, multiple years. Websites are now all my life. All I do is making websites for client that wants the client that want a very custom experience.
Perfect. Yes. So, and I reached out to you after I saw that Mode's website with this beautiful navbar animation, which is what we're going to kind of rebuild, moves text, uses SVGs. Super excited to dive in here. Where do you think we should start? So kind of talk to us about the client, what they wanted. Do you want to jump into the website? I'm super excited to show it off, but where do you think we should start in thinking about, getting into animations and animating text?
Yeah, well, we can look at the live version. We can touch a little bit on what the client wanted. It was their idea to have a hamburger menu on the desktop version, and my role was really to bring it to life, making sense with they had a new brand, so making sense with the new brand they had, not just visually, statically, but also with the movement.
Okay, so I've actually pulled it up here. So this is your client, Modes is your client. We're going to be rebuilding, parts of the animation in this beautiful navbar. And if folks are interested in the clonable, drop a comment. We're not going to share the whole clonable, not the whole website, but if you are interested in maybe a wireframe of it, let me know in the chat or in the comments. But we are going to be rebuilding most of this today. So Joe, talk to me about this little navbar and all the intricacies that are happening when I'm just simply opening the navbar here.
Well, obviously there's a few things happening, but we're using Webflow's native nav bar, which is pretty cool. And on opening of that nav bar, we're triggering a whole lot of things happening. So there's some parallax happening with the background texture. There's the cascading effect with all those nav links, and also obviously the scaling of the logo. But there's also the hover effect on the hamburger icon that lets you know that this is something you can click on.
So most importantly, Joe, I think everyone in the chat is asking, did you want the logo bigger, or is that a client request?
That was my initiative. Yeah, I want to make the logo bigger. I don't know why there's pushback from the design community, but I'm on the client side. Let's make the logo bigger.
You just came in the pitch, and I'm like, we need a bigger logo, and you just went for it. I love it.
Fighting the good fight for the clients.
Okay. Next step, Virat says make it pop. So you made the logo bigger, and now let's talk about making it pop. So we're gonna rebuild this in a way of learning Webflow animations, how to make things scale and make things beautiful. Can you, at a high level, explain what are the big pieces of what's happening here? And those are the things we're going to rebuild.
The big pieces, well, I think obviously the logo itself, being in view always, obviously takes up a lot of the viewer's attention, but also the big nav links. And that's the goal behind this. We have those big nav links that it's the first thing you want people to notice when they open the full page menu.
Okay. So what I propose is just so we can learn, we're going to learn how to make the logo bigger. And frankly, after that, what else is there to learn? Let's be real. Like once we've made the logo bigger, client is happy, then we'll learn how to make the little animation where you see the little background. Mm-hmm. How about one of these links, right? Just as an example of what's possible. And those are the three big buckets. We'll learn how to animate text, how to make the nav bar kind of show beautiful, and most importantly, how to make the logo bigger. Does that sound like a plan? Let me know in the chat if that sounds like a plan. Some people think the logo is too big, Joe. So we might make it a little bit smaller in the rebuild. Who knows? Okay, so what I have here, Joe, I have the same nav bar, right? I have removed all interactions, right? So right now, if you look at it, it just turns on, the logo's huge. So maybe before we jump in, how do you think about, okay, this is going to be an interaction on the nav bar, on the page. Like, where should we start in learning how to get from something pretty basic to the actual beautiful nav bar like this?
Well, here we have the luxury of using, like I said earlier, Webflow's native nav bar. And I mean, here we can use the default settings. There's like easing you can use when you're using animation on open and closing of that nav bar. So this is what we'll use, but that's not all we'll use. We'll also use the Webflow interactions to make it pop, like you said earlier.
Okay, so what I have, so we have the default nav bar, right, of Webflow. And I've set it to show, we do have some easing, right? So we do have some setup on how it shows. So this that little appearer, right? How it appears is our kind of default. So that is not in Webflow interaction. So how about we start with making the logo bigger?
Right.
Joe, how do I make the logo bigger? Or smaller, so it ends up bigger?
Yeah. So the reason why it's set up this way from the start, it's because if you're scaling up something, even an SVG, which is a scalable graphic, even if you scale up an SVG, it's still going to end up being pixelated. So we do it the other way around, so that we start with the big one that will just shrink, set that to its initial state, and that way we make sure that the logo is always sharp and there's no pixels at all.
Okay, so imagine I'm new to Webflow animations. I want to set an animation on the nav bar, correct?
Correct.
So we're selecting the nav bar, interactions. We want when nav bar opens. So when the nav bar opens, I want to make the logo bigger. So I've just gone ahead. I'm going to start an animation. We don't have any animations, right? Or we don't have any
Nope.
Let's go ahead and set up, make the logo bigger. Right, let me know if I need to zoom in here.
Webflow should do that automatically.
It should. Thank you for that feedback. I'll bring that to the product team. This is a good place to give me your product feedback, Joe. It's seen by me and hundreds of people. So
make that logo bigger.
How do we walk me through how you think about making the logo bigger? So at the beginning, we want it to be like this. At the end, we want it to be like this.
Right. So obviously it's big from the start. So in the actions panel, you can set, well, make sure to select, the brand, not just the image, but the wrapper. So the brand link, because when it's big, you also want people to be able to click on it no matter the size. So you set the initial state of this brand link to be, I think it's 0.3, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe you can test it and we'll see.
Okay, so we're setting up an action which says we want to set the beginning size. So I've clicked on the plus on an action on size.
I think I used scaling and not size, if I'm not mistaken.
We can do that. Let's go ahead and grab scale, right? So we're saying take the brand class and we want to increase, or we want to decrease its size. We want to set a certain scale at the beginning. So we're going to set an initial state. So when the navbar opens, we want to set an initial state. And what did we have for scale?
I think it's 0.3 or 0.3. Not sure.
So we're essentially saying make 30% of what it is going to be at the end, and we've already scaled it to be the right size at the end. And then how do I say, okay, well, scale it back to 1 or scale it to 1?
The way I do it here would be to duplicate the one you currently have and then bump it up to be 100%, so 1. And ideally I would want that interaction to match the time of the opening of the full page menu. So I think we had 85.85 for the duration.
Okay. So some folks are saying that you're a little louder. So I've just increased Joe's mic. Let me know. Let me know if Joe is better. So if we're a little more level, just let me know in the chat and I can increase or decrease Joe as needed. Joe, nothing to do on your end.
Okay.
Okay. So we've gone ahead and added brand. I've removed set as initial state. I can't. I already have initial state. And I've set the scale to 1, which brings us to here. Now, if we don't change anything, Joe, how about we check what this looks like?
Okay.
Right? Now, it might look okay, but I think if we go like here, it doesn't quite scale at the same speed, right? I think we want a little bit of easing. How do I set it up so that this scales in a similar way to the kind of nav bar pulling out?
Yeah. Easing itself is a nice opportunity to make sure that everything is on brand, whether it's funky, loud, edgy. And here I went with, I think it was ease out cubic, which is a nice way to finish the interaction. But yeah, you can play with it, have fun with it. It doesn't have to match, in this instance, it doesn't have to match exactly the opening of the menu.
Okay, so you're saying here, the easing, we have linear by default. We want ease out cubic, right?
Ease out cubic.
So where is that? Ease out cubic, cubic right here, right? And what about duration? How do you think about how long should that animation take?
For this case here, it has to match the opening of the menu. You don't want one to be longer than the other one.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, if I go into the nav bar, we're going into settings, we have it at 850 milliseconds. So we can go back into interactions. We can go here. Let's go into settings of this one. And we want a similar 0.85. Like that. Okay, let's see how that looks. All right, let's play that. That actually looks really good. I don't know about you. I think some people in the chat might disagree. So let us know in the chat what you think of this little animation. We're not going to do the ease back out. I think that's pretty, once we understand that, we can do that if we have time at the end. So that looks pretty good. What do you think, Joe, would be a good, if I remember, we're trying to get to here. So that looks good. I'm noticing a little something with the background. It's not quite linear.
There's a little bit of parallax happening there.
Do you want to do that, or you want to talk about the links? Where do you think we should go
Let's
next?
do it. Let's do it. This background is super straightforward. It's a SVG taking up the full space of that background,
Uh-huh.
and is simply moving at a different pace than the opening of the menu. So that
Yeah.
this way gives you this depth, this extra layer when you open and close that full page menu.
Okay, so here on the background, you're saying it doesn't start at the same level as, so we're just kind of like pushing it up a little bit and then still ending at the same spot. So it gives a little bit of a parallax effect. Honestly, I'll be honest with you, when we were rehearsing, had Joe had not told me that this was happening, I would not have noticed. And I think that is like Joe's eye for animation. So let's create this little styling. I think it'll be a good tip of how to animate folks. So let's go here. So you're saying, where does the background live?
I think it's that one. Yeah.
So
This image background, nav background image div is taking up the full background of that nav menu, right?
yeah,
It's absolute in the background,
right
sitting
here.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have it absolute. So it takes up all the space, right? That's available. And this is what we're trying to target. Would you put it in the same animation as when menu opens, or would you say that that should be a different animation completely specifically on background nav image?
It could be, but in this case, I would put everything that's happening on opening of the nav bar, everything in the same interaction. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add another step here. And what we want is move. Is that correct? We want to move it a little bit higher at the beginning as its initial state?
I think it's lower though. I'm
Oh,
not sure.
okay. I mean higher on the screen, but you mean lower, just moving it a
No,
little
I
bit?
mean lower in the screen.
Oh, okay.
I think it's 20% or 30% down.
Okay. So here we want a certain class, right, to be
Correct.
targeted.
Oh, sorry, you have, yeah, it's not the nav bar. It should be the nav background image div.
Okay, let me do that again. So we're going into, let me select nav background image. Let's click plus. We want to move it, right? We want to
Right.
do it at the beginning of the initial state. And then we want this to be down 20 pixels or 20%. You mentioned percentage. What is the difference between percentage and pixels in this sense?
Since it's taking up the full canvas, the full height of the page, we don't want to do pixels because if it looks good on your desktop, it might not look as good on someone's tablet. So using percentages, we make sure that it's always coming in the same amount in proportion to that screen.
Okay. So I'm going to push it down 20%, right? Like that. So this is
Yep.
going to be the starting point of that div. And we want it to end at 0. So we want it to kind of, is that correct? Okay, got it. So your pro tip
Yep.
is always to duplicate.
Yeah, saves a little bit of time.
There we go. This is the end point. We want it to be 0, right?
Right.
And then how do you think about duration? Should it be the same duration as the actual pullout of the...
Well, again, it depends on what you're looking to achieve. In this case, yes, it has to match exactly the opening of the nav bar, and not just the duration, but also the easing. Earlier, we said that the logo could have a different easing. It doesn't matter because it's not really tied to the nav bar. It's just sitting on top of everything. But the parallax effect of the background, though, needs to match the easing of the opening of the nav bar.
Okay. And so we currently on the nav bar, let me go back there, have ease out cubic. Joe is very
Right.
peculiar. He doesn't use the same easing in and out. It's cubic in, quad out. A man of details, this Joe. So, okay, so we're going to use ease out cubic because we're opening the nav bar. So let me go back into interactions. Let's go into settings. Here we go. And what I said, ease out cubic, right, Joe?
Right.
Okay. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Let's play here. We have that little bounce. We can see it, but let's see what the actual, let's do that. Here we go. Nice. Let me bring that back. How does this look? You tell me. You've got the better eye here, Joe.
Well, I think we're seeing it opened already because you have it to showing, I think, the nav bar.
Well,
So
I
we're
thought.
not, yeah,
Oh,
right
I see
there
what you mean. I see what you
in
mean.
the
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're
settings.
totally right. Let me refresh here. Oh, because I have it in settings. I'm sorry.
And settings, it says that the nav
Yeah,
bar
yeah,
is
yeah.
open.
This is all me. Okay, here we go. That'll be a solve, but there we go. It's got a little bit of easing. It does not much though.
Just a little bit.
Is that enough, or
You're
you
not,
want to do more?
well, that's the thing. You're not supposed to like actively, you're not supposed to notice it. It's not supposed to catch your attention. It's supposed to be part of the experience in a very subtle way so that it feels like there's depth when you open it, but you don't really need to pay attention to the background moving at a different pace.
Got it. Okay, so we're keeping it subtle. So Virat mentioned that they do want a clonable. So let us know in the chat or in the comments for folks watching if you want a clonable of the how to say it, of the outline of this. We're happy to create that. There's a mention from Adrian saying using percentage is a very good practice. Excellent pro tip. Joe, I imagine this is something you would generalize and say percentages are often better, especially when you're creating these animations versus pixels, because they will look good across screen sizes.
Yeah. And again, it depends on what you're looking to achieve, but yeah, go with like REMs or viewport height or percentages. In most interactions, that's the way to go.
Okay. There's a few. Keep dropping your questions. I'm seeing a question from Vitter, which we'll keep for the Q&A. If you have questions for Joe about this build or Joe generally, drop them in the chat. We are probably going to have about 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. Also, make sure to add your name to this week's credits. If you're watching on Instagram, come join us on YouTube, and you could fill out the form and see your name and a title that I'll give you in the stream. So it's pinned at the top of the chat on YouTube. Okay, Joe. So we've done two things. We have made the logo bigger, which frankly, that was 99% of what we wanted to accomplish. We've made this little bouncy animation of the background. Talk to me about these two right here. So we are here. What is happening here? I currently just have, a div with the little wavy, about, no hover. What are the big outlines of this? How do we build this?
Should we focus on the hover interaction or the nav bar, the opening of the nav bar?
We've been in navbar, so let's start with navbar, and then we'll do hover either as an animation or as on the hover.
So when you open the nav bar on the live version, you see that there's different there's this domino effect happening with those links. They don't come in all at the same time, so we can do that. The fading in of those nav links
right there. So when I open, we don't see them right away. A little later, they fade in and then move a little up, right? So imagine I'm going to have all of this happen on open. And then how do I have that text? See, we're actually animating text here. So I'm going to go back into my interaction, right? Interactions. Let's go back to the nav bar. Let's go into our animation. So talk to me about how do I animate this whole text to fade in and appear a little later?
Right. You need to select the whole thing. So here, the nav link. Right. And those, the initial state are, it's going to be lower and 0% opacity. So there's two things there.
Okay. So I select the whole nav link. You're saying we want them to be a little lower?
Right.
Okay, let's go. So we are setting
movement, move. Yeah, we could do 2 or 3 rem.
So we're moving it down 2 or 3 rem.
Yeah.
There we go. So this is a little lower. It's going to overlap with the one below, but we'll do the same thing there.
And I would, maybe do the opacity first. So the same element, 0% opacity.
Okay, opacity. There we go. And then we want 0. We want it to be invisible.
Right. And then I would duplicate the whole thing.
Both,
actually.
So I'm holding shift, I'm selecting both, and I duplicate. Here we go. I'm moving it here. And then the move, we want it to be 0. We want it back to its original spot, correct?
Right.
And opacity 100. Now, how do you think about what easing, or how do you style those?
In like most cases, I'll use for opacity a simple ease just to make sure it's not too linear. But I don't see the point in using like different type of ease when it comes to opacity.
Mm-hmm.
The movement though is really crucial to really nail the easing perfectly. We have 0.85 seconds to open the full thing. So maybe we should do a little bit longer for those fading in, just to make sure that we're actually noticing them as it opens. So
So you
maybe
mean
one
let's delay the start and
both. We could delay the start and also make the duration just a bit longer.
okay, so let's go ahead and maybe 0.3. So we'll start it as it's going down, and
Yeah.
we want it to end after we're done rolling out, which takes 0.85. So maybe 0.7.
No, sorry, I'd make it even longer. So maybe 1 second, 1 full second.
1 full second for for it to fully, but that's positioning. I have it on the move. You mean on the move, right? So that's what we want.
I mean, both of them. So ideally, you could also like select both and do it just once.
Oh, okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. So we want to make it after previous action.
No, sorry, width, but with a delay of 0.3 maybe. Yeah.
Okay. We are understood, Joe. It's because we're speaking English. If we were speaking French, this would
Mais
be
oui,
so much simpler.
c'est plus facile.
Beaucoup plus facile. That was a joke for Joe, me, and Joel from Montreal on the chat. There were 8 people who understood that. So if you're from Montreal, shout out, or Quebec in general.
Yeah.
So I said we want it to be 0.1 second. So I've selected both. I've said I want to start 0.3 after, and we have a linear kind of easing for both for now. We can change that. So let's save that. Let's see how that looks. So we're just styling the about, right? So let me go
Correct.
into here. Now it's already open. So let me change that. Let me go here. Let me hide it. And let's see what that looks like. So Joe, this is where you come in. Give us your good eye. A little slow.
Too slow, yeah.
Very slow.
So maybe we should start it right on click, so 0 delay, and also maybe go with, I don't know, 0.9 duration instead of 1 second.
Okay.
But also there's no easing right now, so that's also misleading.
Right. Okay. So we want, okay, let's select both. We're saying let's slow it down a little bit, make it a little shorter, maybe 0.7. And what easing should we put?
So opacity, like I said earlier, just go with ease, simple ease, and don't overthink it. But for the movement, I would go with out cubic just to match the opening of the nav bar.
Okay, let's try that. Let's see how this looks. Then we're animating this little text in the nav bar. Bam. That actually looks really good. Let me go back. Nice. And we can apply the same thing to services.
Let's do it.
So we can see both. What is the easiest way in your view to kind of make that apply to a different class?
Yeah, once you got something you're happy with, not necessarily in the same interaction, but duplicating interactions also might be a speedy way to do those. Use what you already have. You don't have to reset all the delays, all the easing. So in this case, I would duplicate the current navlink triggers.
Let me expand the nav bar. So we're essentially going into interactions. We're back here. Go to settings. We're selecting the 2 nav links. We're
Correct.
happy with this. You're saying duplicate.
Right.
Boom. I've duplicated. Oh, should I have selected all 4?
No, if you do that, it's going to mess up the easing and delays and everything. Yeah.
And then change target.
Well, no. First, you need to duplicate the last 2 as well.
Okay,
so
let's duplicate these. There we go.
Now you select all 4, and then you change the target to be the service one.
So I got to look at my keyboard. Okay, so we're selecting this.
Right.
and then change target. And we want this to be nav link is services, right? So we have a combo class. Okay, there we go. Let's save that. Let's make sure that, oops, go into settings. And now we group these in an initial state.
This needs to
Bring
go
these
up.
here.
With
Let us know in the chat if there are any questions for Joe. I know I'm going a little faster because we're simply duplicating. Let's move these here. And I imagine do we want the exact same styles here? So we're moving it down 3, opacity 0. And then here, the services. Okay, let's see what that looks like. How about there? Huh. I don't think we got it right. It seems like about is now just shown at the beginning.
Could it be because it's open once again?
Oh, okay, yeah, let me check. Let me go.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Hide. Let's play.
No,
I think we messed up the about. Let me delete those and recreate them. This is not a Joe problem. This is a me problem. Joe always gets his interactions perfect on the first try.
Always.
Okay, let's go interaction. Let's see what's going on here. Settings. Okay, I've got is service. Let me expand the nav bar. Let me make sure I have the right classes. So this is about, and this is service. So both of those are correct. Let's go into interactions. Let's go on the nav bar. Go into settings, make the logo bigger, which does much more than making the logo bigger. And it's because we changed this to is service.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the interactions panel there. You actually see which one you're targeting right there at the bottom. So that's pretty cool.
So this should be is about. Same. There we go.
Did you?
But no, I didn't select it. Sorry. So it's nav link.
Yeah, I think currently you're changing the whole thing.
Oh, because I have them all selected?
I think so.
Oh, how do I
So maybe just select the last 2 of each. So the last 2 up there and the last 2 at the bottom. And then instead of changing the class name at the bottom of that corner panel, do it on the actual element on the left.
So you're saying
change target and select it either on the canvas or in the navigator on the left.
There we go. See, when you have a problem, you should start a live stream and then you should invite Joe to your live stream to debug your website. Joe always says yes to the live stream. The only thing is you have to mention about 200 prizes before he's willing to come on. So those are the rules. Okay, let's try that. Okay, let me make sure it's closed. We have learned. Settings. Nav bar. Let's hide it. And beautiful. We can stagger those a little bit. Let's keep that for the end because I do want to show folks how to create the little sideways on hover, right? We see this little animation. How about we start with moving to the right and then we'll do the wavy. And I think that'll be good for today. So
and just to let people know too, the different colors that we have here are not set by the interaction itself. It's just the hover effect of those specific elements. Okay. So they have a combo class defining the color.
So if I go into, let's make this, maybe we start there. Let's go, I got to click into the component. So Joe builds components. He builds scalably, very important. And you're saying that the hover, right? So if we select the whole,
the nav link,
there's a hover that we can add.
Yep.
And let's go typography color. And let's make orange 1. So now as we hover, we got to do that. Keeping the
you're
hover.
currently selected yet.
That's okay. Okay, so how do we make this move to the right or start on the left? And as I, open the text, or sorry, when I hover over the link, the div, it moves to the right and appears this little wavy thing. And then we talk about how to make it wavy.
Okay. So first off, we got to move everything to the left as an initial state. So we create a hover interaction on those nav links.
Okay, we're doing it on the full nav link.
Correct.
Okay, so let me go ahead and add an
you
interaction.
Want to, no matter what your cursor is on in this area, you want it to be triggered.
Okay, so we're mouse hovering.
Correct.
And then we want to move the whole div, correct?
Right.
Or start an animation.
Actually, we're going to select each element individually. So the nav wave div should move to the left. And same thing with the actual text.
Okay, so we're creating the same animation on both of moving them to the left as an initial state.
Correct.
Okay, so here we're creating an animation on new nav div, right?
No, sorry. We're selecting the nav link, and everything's going to happen with this hover interaction.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So in here, you can select each and create the movement you want.
Okay, so I'm still creating an animation on the whole nav link. We're going to create a new animation. We're going to call this move link. As we hover. And how do you think about this animation? I want it to start where I don't see the little wavy. And then as I hover, I want it to move to the right.
So the nav link itself has an overflow hidden so that if we do move something inside of it, it won't show. So we want to grab the nav wave div and move it to the left.
Okay, so I'm going to move, and we want the initial state to be like, we want to hide the wavy thing. So we're going to set the initial state leftwards, right? So x-axis to the left.
Correct.
So it hides it. Okay, cool.
But so you got to select the nav wave div and not the nav link, though.
Okay, so we got to, here, we're going to change the target. And we're going to, this is what we want to move to the left.
Correct.
Correct. And how can I just go by eye?
I would do 100% and maybe even bump it up to like 102 just to make sure no one actually sees it.
Right. So that's percentage of width. So we're moving
percentage of that element. Yeah.
There we go. So I've set to minus 102. So we know that it's always hidden because that percentage is of the width of the element. And so it's going to move left. And should we do the same for about, right? We want it to be a little to the left within the nav link div. So it appears, so it's not overflowed. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's not hidden by the overflow hidden. Okay, so let me go ahead.
And to move that text over to the left, I would use the width of that wave div to define how much we move it to the left. But in this case, we can eyeball it and say maybe moving it to the left, like, I don't know, 100 pixels or whatever.
Okay, so we're saying here what we want to select. So we want to change the target. We want to move the nav text. Let's just eyeball it. So minus 100. Maybe a little less because maybe a little minus 85. There we go. I don't want to anger every designer on the stream by making it not perfect. Here we go. There we go.
And we got to make sure that we're those classes that we have selected, we're only triggering the children, just to make sure it doesn't happen on all those nav links.
Got it. Only children with this class. Right. Perfect. Okay. And now we have the initial state. On hover, we want to move everything right.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you recommend moving the whole div, or should I move each individual item?
Each individual items. And again, it depends on which design you're working on, but you don't want people to have their cursor lie to them, because if you're moving what they're actually hovering, if my cursor is on something that I'm hovering, but it moves on me while I'm hovering it might create some frustrations there.
Yeah.
So that's why I prefer to trigger the content and not the actual container.
Okay. So let's go ahead and you would recommend duplicating both?
Correct. Just to save time.
Now I'm selecting new wave div. At the end, I want it to be 0.
0%. So back at its spot. Yeah.
Same thing with nav text.
Yep.
Okay. Now let's see how that looks. There we go. So it actually looks pretty good. Let's see this is assuming we're hovering. So let's see what it looks like in here. So boom. Nice. And we got that we can do the hover out. I will let people do that on their own, right? So it's just duplicating in the same interaction on hover out.
Yep.
Right. Okay. And now the tour de force. How do we do the squiggly, which I was really impressed with? I wanted you to teach me how do we make this move perpetually.
Yeah, some people might think this is a Lottie or something that actually moves. It's not. It's just an SVG that we're moving with Webflow interaction. But the fact that the edges are hidden gives it this wave effect.
Okay, so it is just an SVG that we are moving forward. So walk me through how I'm understanding it's like a mix of the style properties of that. Let me keep here. Of this, right? Of the little nav wave div.
Yeah.
And
this has an overflow hidden.
Right.
Go ahead.
Sorry, say that again, Joe.
I was just going to say this has an overflow hidden so that we don't see this long snake of an SVG. But
right. Like this. So it is really long right here.
Triggering the movement it's actually not the hovering of that element that's moving that line. It's a page loading interaction. So as soon as the page is loaded, all those lines, all the elements with that nav wave class name are going to move in that direction.
Okay. I know we're 15 minutes before, and I want to leave some time for Q&A. Let's try to do that animation as quickly as possible. So I want to go back to my page, right? I'm going to click out of navbar. I want to create a new kind of interaction, right? On page load.
Yep.
Page load. We want to start an animation. And we're going to call this wavy thing.
Wavy thing.
Right. Then how do you just move it forward?
Again, I'm using percentages for that. So this thing is very long. I think it's taking up 600% of the width of that container. So what we'll do is we'll move it to the left on a linear line very slowly, and we're going to move it 50% to the left.
Okay, so I want to select, how do I go into the nav bar? I want to select
have it right there.
The whole, would you recommend selecting just the new wave div, right? Just the image itself. Yeah. Okay. And you're saying start it at 300% to the left.
Yep. No, start it. Currently, it's sitting to the left edge of that container.
Yeah.
We want it there. We just want to move it sideways. So I would move it, I think it's 50% to the left.
Okay, 50% of its parent. There's some questions in the chat. Keep them coming. I will have some time with Jomor. So minus 50%. Let me set that up.
And the reason why we're doing 50% and not 100% is so that we have this continuous loop happening and there's no breaking point.
Yeah, and what we see even at minus 50%, it looks the same because it's intersecting at the same place.
So you need to prepare your SVGs with that in mind. It has to be like the reflection of it.
Okay. And then at the end, what is our end state? So I'm going to duplicate that.
So once we've moved it 50% like it is right now, we need to reset it to its initial state.
Okay. So it goes
zero and
here.
And it has to be instant.
Instant. So it just no easing.
Nothing at all. 0 and linear.
Linear. Okay. And that's just this is going to make it move. How do we make it loop? Which is a question from the chat.
Yeah, we got to make sure also to select the class name and not just the element. So that way it happens everywhere on the site.
Oh, I see. So I am selecting element. We want class. New wave, same thing for here. New wave. Okay, we're good. What if I play
And
this?
for the looping, you need to save this interaction, and then here you have the option to loop it right there.
Loop. There we go. Okay. How confident are you, Joe?
76.
76. Okay. Here. No looping. No movement.
No looping. What's going on?
Let's check. Let me go back into my animations. Maybe I'm not page loading. Let's deploy it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
Let me go into navbar. Da-da-da. Wavy thing. So we are saying start at -50.
no, move 50%. There's no, oh, that's the thing. You have it set to the initial state. There's no initial state.
There's no initial state. I see.
The initial state.
I see, Joe. -50 here. See?
Minus
Again,
50.
start a stream. Have Joe come on. There we go. Some folks in the chat. Pablo was way ahead of us. So thank you, Pablo. Okay, let's see how that looks. Way too fast. We can slow that down. We can slow that down, but folks get the point. And then you could ease out, and that'll work. So
yeah. So that second resetting of the SVG needs to be 0 still, but the movement of 50%, we can add the duration we want.
right. So let's just do that really quickly because I want to leave people with a beautiful animation, which is what you do. So here you're saying instead of 0.
No, sorry, the first one, the movement of 50%, yeah, needs to, I don't know, 20 seconds or something.
20 seconds. Okay, let's try that. We can probably preview it here. They're a little slow.
Yeah.
Maybe 10. Let's play that. Still a little slow. 5 maybe. How does that look?
That's good.
That's good. I like it. Okay, here we go. And we could apply that across everywhere. I like it. Good job, Joe. Thank you for teaching us how to animate typography. There's some questions in the chat that I want to get to. And if you have some, now is a good time to drop them. We have about 5 more minutes here. And then if you haven't yet, go ahead and fill out the form at the top. I'm going to take this hat off because it's getting warm. Okay. Here we go. All right, Joe, some questions from the chat. Why are you so handsome? How did this happen? That was the number one question. I'm
not. It's all an illusion.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in makeup before this. There was a question, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, and maybe in the chat people will. Folks wanted to know about typewriter effects. So let's say something typing out and then erasing. You know, you are, as an animation professional, Webflow animation, interactions professional, how would you recommend doing that?
Custom code for sure, because you can do it letter by letter, but if you do it with Webflow interaction in this way, it's not scalable. Your client won't be able to change the text by themselves. So I only do it for very, very specific cases, but in most cases, you'll need custom code to make sure this comes in that way.
Right. And do you have a favorite library that you would recommend that you've used in the past?
Honestly, no. I like to pick and choose here and there. And when you find something that really works for you, don't get rid of it. Use it. Keep it in your own library for future use.
Perfect. A question from Hadi. How do you handle big animations and bring them down? Also, shout out to your beard.
Thanks, man. Big animation. Well, it's all about taking it one step at the time, making sure that it's not going to break your Webflow build, and also having clear discussions with the client on who's going to work on this. Is it something you can handle, making changes yourself? Is it something that's going to break on mobile? Is mobile important at all? And all those questions are really crucial when it's time to doing something very big, because if it's a big interaction, obviously it's doing the heavy lifting for the experience, and you don't want to have something down the line that you realize it's not going to work at all. You have to go back to the drawing board, and it's just too much.
Now, you are way too humble to say this on the stream, but you do have a course talking all about Webflow animations. And I think a big part of it is how to think of breaking things down or building more complex and beautiful animations, which is an example today. We took something that felt very complicated and broke it down into pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a link in the chat to your course, and I'll include it in the description of this video. And my understanding is that course both teaches me Webflow interactions, and I get to see your beard a lot. So I think it'd be perfect for Hadi.
It's a double whammy.
Okay.
But yeah, you need to think of those interactions from your client's perspective, and also, in the course I talk about the responsiveness of it all, making sure that it doesn't just look good on your screen, but everywhere.
Totally. And so there are some folks who have taken the course. So, Zach, a student of yours, loved your course. So if you're not going to promote it, I will. So there's a question from Kemiesh. I don't know if you can answer this. Can we use a JSON file for animation?
We can, absolutely. I've done it in the past. Again, it all depends on what you're looking to achieve, what your client wants. So if your client needs to update that JSON on their own down the line, maybe they have an in-house designer who's more comfortable using SVG. So maybe going the SVG Webflow interaction route is better for them. Both options are really good options.
Okay, perfect. So another shout out to your course from Carlos. A must if you want to upgrade your. So I know we only have a few minutes left here, Joe. Beyond the course, how should people get in touch with you once they have a stream and want to ask you questions about Webflow? But more generally, maybe if they don't have a stream, how can they keep up with you?
Well, all the social medias, I'm pretty responsive when it comes to email. So, I mean, if there's anything out there that I can help with, don't be afraid to ask. And I'm happy to help with your interaction needs.
So there's a few folks mentioning Spline. We have a stream about Spline. I'm sure you're digging into it. Go check out the introduction to Webflow Spline that we did, I think, a couple months ago now, quite a while. So, Joe, a true honor to have you on. Any final words you want to leave the audience with?
Not really. Well, we have a course starting tomorrow. If you want to check it out, it's on my social media, Joseph Berry, Melissa. If you're part of the Webflow community, you know all of us. So check it out. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a 5-month thing. So it's going to be cool.
I'll drop a link. I don't have the link from it. I'll drop it into the chat. But Joe, merci beaucoup. On se voit bientôt. And huge thanks for coming on today.
Merci à toi. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Well, that was our stream. I will be off the next 2 weeks, and then we'll be back with a stream about a new feature that I can't tell you about, but you're definitely not going to miss this. So I think it is March 6th. It's going to be in, I got to read I can't see. Let me bring it up. I can read these 1 second. Here we go. Who do we have today? We have Wander. We had Noman, Peter, Kamlesh, Jeff, Luis, Giovanni, Rafael, Hansel, Pablo, Jimmy, Francisco. Thank you all so much. I will be back in 3 weeks, not 2 weeks. Huge honor to have Joe. Huge thanks to him. And thank you all for joining. And I will see you back here in 3 weeks to talk about a new feature that you don't know yet about. And I'm really excited. Bye, everyone.